The sponsor of this episode is Chadwell Supply, an OG in the multifamily industry. Chadwell Supply is the largest privately owned maintenance and repair supplier, and they deliver orders the next day from local warehouses across the United States. To find out how Chadwell Supply will make your day better, visit www.chadwellsupply.com/difference.
Hello, and welcome to Optimized, a marketing performance podcast brought to you by the Multifamily Media Network. I'm Janet Rosseth, your host and a 25-year veteran of multifamily marketing. This podcast is going to challenge you to reach 1% better somewhere in your daily life, and optimizing is how we'll do that together. Whether it's bringing your personal best to your work and life, building efficient work processes, uncovering new trends, or making sense of meaningful data, we'll dig in together and find that 1%. Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Optimized, a marketing performance podcast. I'm Janet Rosseth, your host and 25-plus year veteran of multifamily marketing. And we're here on the Optimized podcast to help you bring just 1% better in your daily performance, whether it's personal, professional, processes, data, whichever it's going to be. And I'm super excited today. We're welcoming guest Jared Leese. Jared and I have known each other for a long time, and I'm really pleased to bring you a session with Jared on really all things performance and optimizing your performance. Jared, you want to introduce yourself?
I'd be happy to. Thank you so much for having me today, Janet. Again, as Janet mentioned, Jared Leese. I've been in the industry for a bit over a decade. I've known Janet for all of that time. So lots of time going back, lots of interactions there. I started in the industry as a leasing professional. Just wanted to get a new job. I'm happy to talk through about how I got to that point later on today, Janet. But started there and just learned a lot of different skill sets and tried a lot of different things, and was constantly curious about the industry. And I'm currently a manager of learning and talent development for an entire part of the country for one of the largest multifamily management companies in the country right now, and continuing to be curious and look into new ways to improve and be better, and to Janet's point, to optimize my everyday.
Right. I think you're very good at that. And I, look back on your journey starting from a leasing agent, and you were never just content just leasing at the property you were leasing at without taking a next goal or adding, a stretch goal to it. And from, I believe, that property where you and I started working together first, you went on to a couple of lease ups.
I did, yeah.
So on a lease ups to cut your chops, right?
That is a learning experience. A lease up is something where you can really be exposed to different parts of the industry. You're dealing with brokers, with ownership groups, with construction teams, with marketing teams. There's so many people involved in a lease up. And again, the point that you'll probably hear me say a lot on this interview is that just be curious about everything that you can impact and play a role in. Whether or not it's something you're passionate about, whether or not it's something that you like to do, you should still be curious. And so being able to spend that time with those different groups allowed me to find the parts of the industry I most thoroughly enjoyed and the parts that I was naturally gifted at and good at to continue to craft a role and a path forward.
Right. We're going to dig into all of that, but I want to just acknowledge that your curiosity and your ability to strike that curiosity in others has led you not only to a training role at a national company, but you're also chairing the education committee at the Multi-Housing Association here locally, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. So I definitely think that it's important to maintain as many professional connections as possible. You never know what you're going to need, what you're going to work on, or whose advice you might seek out in the future. And looking for local opportunities to be committed and engaged both locally and at other firms and locations, I think is crucial. So I joined the education committee. I wanted to know what training was being rolled out, what was developed, what was asked, what was needed in the local market here in the Minneapolis area. And in doing so, was asked, hey, would you like to share this down the road? So I had a few people reach out and say, you should probably try this out. And so this is my first year trying out being the chair of the education committee, but again, just excited to share and give back and learn from my peers.
And you know that I'm a huge fan also of networking and putting yourself out there, giving a little bit and getting back and exposing yourself to the varying ways that everybody else executes this job. Like we're all leasing multifamily is leasing multifamily, and marketing
Mhm.
multifamily is marketing multifamily. They're both a beast of their own. Training, same thing. But when we engage others and learn from others, we just have such a capacity to raise the bar in the industry.
That's absolutely it. It's finding what works and finding a way to integrate what works into your daily activities, and then finding a way to share that with others. As you just pointed out, Janet, everyone can get better, and it doesn't threaten my work or my company, because if everyone else is better, that allows me the advancement opportunity.
Perfectly stated. Let's dig into just the coaching and training portion of your role and what you do on a day-to-day basis. Tell me first your thoughts on coaching professional growth. You have the curiosity factor that you always bring to the table, but what are your thoughts on coaching professional growth? And I'd also like to really dial into how it's changed in the last couple of years.
Yeah, a lot of changes, I would say, recently, in that people have obviously more access to information. People are more connected. They know more people. How many times have you heard, my uncle, my cousin, my so and so works in the industry, therefore I know how to do this? And I think that's been a big difference recently. The other piece I've noticed, though, is multifamily hasn't traditionally done a great job of training leaders to be leaders. They've trained leaders to be task managers. And people are promoted into a role, a supervisory role or a coach role, because maybe they're the best ever at renewals. But that doesn't always translate to supporting and encouraging someone else to do those renewals. And so what I've learned about coaching is it's a lot of asking people what they enjoy about their job and seeing if they can share that joy with someone else to free up their time. And by focusing on the part of the job they enjoy most and getting them to share their excitement with others, that's how they develop people around them, and that's how I can develop those folks and move them up. But spending time coaching them on just something they're bad at because they don't like doing it doesn't usually lead to their success long term.
You're so right. I've seen way too many times that we promote someone who's the best at that role, or we ask them to go to another property and help train. And it's two very different roles, training or leading versus doing the actual task. Some people are very tactical and some people are really more, I'll use the working genius term, galvanizing.
Yeah,
They like to
absolutely.
galvanize, they like to rally others. Some people really like to just be told what it is that they need to do to be successful, and off they'll go and do that thing really, really well.
Yeah, and you don't need to coach them as much if they love to do it. Just let them share their excitement for that item. I will say, though, that getting to know the people in your organization that are good at coaching is its own job.
Yeah.
So I'm fortunate enough to be in a role where I can travel around and meet property staff, admin staff, regional staff, whoever it may be, and discover the people that want to share and coach, and discover the people that just want to get their job done. And separating those groups and then encouraging them in different ways is also part of modern day coaching, of knowing that it's not a one size fits all idea. I can't show up to a property with 10 people and all 10 of them relate to me the same way. It's about understanding how to communicate with each of those individuals so that they can then go forth and share that piece and expand that network.
Right. Oh, I love the way that you just framed that as you're out trying to discover the talent within your organization. And that discovery process, you and I both share the goal and the quest of identifying people's strengths and helping them see their strengths. And I'm
It's
curious, when
absolutely.
you've been out and you've been seeking out this talent, or on a discovery mission of finding the strengths in others, what successes have you seen? Because you've probably found some people that didn't really intend to grow in that area.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh. I think part of that is making sure they know that it's not, if you're going to support other people, you have to support everything they do, and knowing that you can be the subject matter expert on one item and still make a difference. Maybe I actually just had a conversation last week with a groundskeeper. We usually don't get, and I don't see a lot of groundskeepers who want to go out and coach other people. They show up, they do their work, they know their property, they know their residents, and then that's all they want. But I had one. I had a manager say, my groundskeeper wants to coach. And I said, great. Picked up the phone, and that's another big piece. The first step is picking up a phone and having an actual conversation with this individual, and chatted with her and said, this is what we're looking for. I need you to help guide and support someone. What would you like to do? And she said, well, yeah, I'd love to show up, walk around with this person, get to know them, and give them some ideas and teach them about what chemicals work on different stain types. And I was like, love that. Go teach them about chemicals. If that's what you want to do, we can supplement and support. We can find other subject matter experts. But if you want to share chemicals, then great stuff. Let's use that. And that also encourages this coach, right? This employee to do better at their own work, but also to get that instant reward. I think we all need that boost and that self boost, that care, that excitement, right? That you did something good and that made a difference. And so it doesn't matter how small that is, that helps you long term.
I think this also points out an area of our industry that maybe needs a little more attention. We tend to guide people to believe that the only path is upwards in a property. You start at groundskeeping or you start at leasing, and then your goal is to move up to assistant manager or property manager or area manager. But there are so many opportunities within multifamily organizations to really lean into the strengths in one role and do more of it at a larger property, across a portfolio, in a training role.
And just with different people. Janet, you and I had chatted previously on another day about how you engage with different individuals and how you can share the same information multiple ways. Maybe it's just someone onboarding a new team member sitting right next to them, and you're doing the exact same job you were doing yesterday, but now you're explaining it to a new person. And in explaining it, you learn more about yourself.
Right.
So that's a growth opportunity, just meeting new people, as long as you make it a growth opportunity. And so that's a big piece I'm excited to chat with you about today, is this idea of coaching and training. You have to want to do it. And it's my role as a trainer to go out and instill that desire into everyone else.
Right. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about how you instill that desire in the people that you train when it comes to personal brand and identifying strengths and really leaning into them. How do you take people through that process, and what do you tell them about their personal brand?
Personal brand is such a hot topic right now. So first,
I know,
would
and can we just take a moment to acknowledge that personal brand doesn't just have to be how you show up on LinkedIn? Right?
I was
know
just
you're going to
say
hit
this
that,
is.
but I just had to say
that. You know I'm going to say that. So your personal brand is. So I like the concept of brand as what people say about you when you're not there. And so for a company brand, it's how people describe your organization, your group, your company when you're not there. But you have a personal brand. So what are people talking about when you're not around? So that's, how you show up at work. It's how you engage with other people within the industry. It's how you respond to your supervisor. It's how you help those around you. That all changes people's perception of you, and that creates your personal brand. What I like to do when I meet someone is ask them about what do they enjoy doing, and then help them match what they like to how it impacts their property, their business, their company, their organization. Again, it doesn't matter what it is. I like to describe our leasing professionals as the income generators for a multi-million-dollar business. So what do you touch that is an income generator? Is it marketing? Of course it is. Is it how you answer the phone? Absolutely it is. All of these pieces at the end of the day are income generators for a multi-million-dollar asset or business or company. every different role has a way you can describe it and link it to the larger mission. And people get excited when they think that they're doing something and contributing.
I love that. I think also it makes me think too that personal brand also can be consistency in how you show up for your role and how you show up for your job. And it makes me especially think of you because you are a unique brand in the way that you show up. I mean, we participate in a number of different communities together, right? I always know when you come on screen exactly how you're going to show up. You're going to be
Okay.
enthusiastic. You're going to be excited to learn and share. You're probably going to take some notes.
Mhm.
Yeah,
I think that just goes to being involved in what you're involved in. We talk a
and
lot about
intentional. We use that
active
word all the
listening, but
time, but
being an
honestly, it's
intention.
intentional.
It's intentional, and it's also, if you have to be somewhere anyway, just fully participate. What's the fun of being half in and half out? You should
Yeah,
enjoy yourself in everything you do, and you find so much more enjoyment when you actually pay attention and find ways to engage that you want to engage with. There's always something to learn. There's always something to hear, to discover, someone to meet, but you have to pay attention and actually be in the moment to do that.
absolutely. This takes my mind into other directions of training. And as a trainer, I'm sure you encounter every scenario. But what are the hardest situations and challenges for you to train through?
I would say there's two that come up most frequently in my role. One of which is requests for learning or requests for training to solve a problem that isn't training related. So that's on one piece, leaders saying, this person is failing at their job, please train them. But they
That was
have the
such an
information,
eloquent
they have the
way of
knowledge.
saying, is it training or is it accountability?
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes it's both, right? One of the things I've learned in this role is how to ask those probing questions with leaders to find out what their desired outcome is, and then in learning their desired outcome, then to start to break down the steps that get them to that outcome rather than just offering a solution up front. And again, I've said this to you before, Janet, I'll say this to anyone that listens. Every part of multifamily is just leasing. It's all leasing. Figuring out what people need in order to meet a training goal is overcoming objections. It's the
Yeah.
same process. I'm going to listen to you. I am going to agree with you. We're going to get on the same team together. We're going to acknowledge that you have a desired outcome. We're going to agree on that outcome together. And then we're going to work through why this request came up, why it matters to you. And then we're going to talk about solutions. And if I don't know your why, the solution doesn't work.
What are some of the questions you use to probe that? Because I imagine you run into situations where you're asked to retrain several times over. And this is a
Absolutely.
conversation you and I have had too, because we've got people who show up for training and genuinely just want to eat it all up. They want to absorb all of it. And then we've got others who were required to be there and then they go back into old habits.
Love
But
those people.
at
Yep.
the end of the day, we kind of all need to be paddling in the same direction in order for ships to sail to the right destination. But how do you probe out those questions to define whether or not you're being asked to just retrain as a what's the way I want to word this? Sometimes it's a request to retrain instead of having the hard conversations.
I say a
So
lot of
how do
times
you
that's
probe
what
that
it
out?
is. Yeah. So recently we had a situation, and the questions I asked of this leader were about, has this person ever seen or experienced what you want them to do? Has the behavior been modeled for them? Do you think they
Great question.
understand what you're asking of them? So that's the first one, is to develop that model. After that, is there someone else on your team that you can look at who is doing it the right way? And do you think your employee has capacity to match them? Or does the leader have unrealistic expectations? You tell me, if this is what you want, Do you think the employee has the ability to do that, or are you asking of something just because you feel like it, right? Do you really
Right.
believe they can do it? And then after we determine those, then it's how will you know that this person is moving in the right direction? What check-ins, what steps, what points are you as the leader going to put in place to make sure that whatever we end up delivering and agreeing on is working so that we can adjust as needed?
Right. My favorite. What does success look like and how is it measured?
That's it.
That was
Again,
often my
it's all
feeling. I'd get requested to come and do trainings. We have a lot of clients that want to bring me in to train, and that's great. I love training. I get really enthusiastic about training. But when I keep getting asked to come back and train the same things, it's like, okay, what measures do we have in place to make sure that this is sticking? That there's an expectation that goes along with it, and that we know what success looks like at the end of this training.
And that actually goes back to something I mentioned earlier, and I think it's important to keep this in mind. If the first round of training goes through, we know adult learners are not going to remember every part of every training. They're not. They might remember 10 to 15% of a training, in all honesty. And that hurts to think about, but I know it's true. So you need to follow up with your individuals that were in the class and figure out who remembered what. And hopefully different people remember different things, because peer learning is so much more effective than leader down learning.
Right.
And so if I can host a training, host a class, have a session, meet with some people, and 3 people all took away 3 different items, well, I'm going to put those 3 people back in the room together and let them cross-train each other, because they are going to be sharing what they're excited about with that other person in hopes to supplement. And that way I'm not retraining the same topic, but I can support each individual in what they like best.
Right. Totally agree with that. And I think, we've talked about the accountability factor too, but I think that's an important piece too. If you've identified what success looks like and you've set some expectations as a result of the training, the next step is to identify, okay, what if those steps aren't being met? What if that success is not being reached? What's the accountability? What happens if this training isn't being applied?
Mm-hmm. The other fun piece of doing it this way is oftentimes you uncover a better way of meeting the end goal, because maybe that person is struggling to accomplish the task because of the way they're doing it or the environment around them. But if you change the methodology, they can still reach the same goal. Right. And in that way, we're helping everyone get better and also helping leaders look at the problem in a new light.
Right. Yeah. And honestly, I'm sure you ask the employee too. You're a curious guy. You genuinely want to see people succeed. But when you ask somebody, gosh, you were in the training, you seemed really engaged in it. Seems like we're not quite reaching what success looks like. What's standing in your way? And I'm going to lead us right into, you and I have had many conversations about barriers to success or distractions that get in the way of reaching top performance. How do you start to identify where those distractions and barriers are and start removing them?
Chadwell Supply is the proud sponsor of Multifamily Media Network. Chadwell Supply is the largest privately owned MRO supply company and is committed to the multifamily industry. They deliver orders the next day from local warehouses across the United States. Chadwell Supply offers valuable resources such as maintenance training, a dedicated renovations team, and procurement platform assistance, ensuring multifamily properties operate more efficiently. Now, by partnering with Chadwell Supply, they'll help communities stand out in an increasingly competitive market. So learn more at chadwellsupply.com/difference.
I guess the first thing that I see from every role, every position, every job is people trying to outwork their problems. And I think we can all agree that you can never outwork your problems in this industry. Like that's not an option. They'll catch up with you eventually. And so taking a step back and thinking through every piece of your day that has an impact on what you're trying to do.
Right. How can you work smarter, not harder?
Right. But also being really mindful of sometimes it's a simple thing. So a question I like to ask leasing professionals, talking about phone calls and how important they are and how you need to be engaged with someone, to listen to the person on the other end of the line. I say, where are you taking the phone call? I said, oh, at my desk. Great. Tell me about your desk. What else is there? Well, Post-it notes are there. Cool. Computer's there. Great. Do you ever look at the computer when you're on your phone? And they go, yeah. Is that distracting? Yeah. Can you turn the computer off? Can you leave the desk? But just talking through with them every piece that touches whatever project they're working on.
Right.
And finding
That's
what works for
so
that individual.
true, especially in a leasing role. You think you're going to make all your callbacks, and maybe you have 15 people, 15 prospects on your list to call back, and you barely make it through one because you're hit by constant distractions.
Absolutely. Or, as a manager, let's say we need to have this accountability conversation with an employee. Are you giving the employee the space and time on their calendar to actually be focused on the prep needed for this conversation? Are you giving them the relevant information, materials, and examples so that they don't get defensive? Are you having the conversation in a neutral space? Because if you are the leader and you're bringing your employee into your office, they're already going to be nervous. So you're not crafting a good conversation. So thinking through whatever it is that you want to do, whatever you want to accomplish, there's so many aspects of making it as efficient and long-lasting and successful as possible. And that takes a lot of prep work.
Right. Right. You teach an entire class, I believe you've mentioned it to me once in a while, on scheduling your emergencies. Can we go there? Can we talk about that?
Yeah, I'd love to go there. So
first, take me through, we're talking about distractions and barriers to reaching your top performance or success, but why did you, there must have been a lot that piled up for you to put this class together, but talk me through why you felt it was so necessary.
I hear from so many employees, both on-site and in admin seats, about the distraction that happened that caused them to be late on something else. I didn't get those phone calls made because this thing popped up, or I know that I was supposed to have that one-on-one conversation with an employee, but emergency happened and I couldn't do it, or the budget didn't get done in time, so I was working over the weekend to complete it because this other thing popped up. And there are real, true emergencies within the multifamily industry that are going to totally derail your day, your week, your month. Absolutely, that takes place. But some of these emergencies that I was hearing about were things that weren't altogether unexpected. And when I think of an emergency, I think of, especially in property management, when I think of an emergency, I truly think of something that you did not anticipate and did not expect to happen. So I started to think through and talk through with teams, is it something that you could have planned for, or was it expected? And if it was expected, how do you prepare for it? So I hear a lot of walk-in tours disrupted my day. Well, no, that is going to happen. That's not an emergency.
As a marketer, I say, you're welcome.
You're welcome. We got you more people.
Also,
they dropped off 200
didn't just
packages.
Walk in. They've probably already done all their research. Sorry, I digress. Go ahead.
Our ILS worked, something worked. They dropped off 200 packages at the door at the same time. I had to sort through them all, and it derailed my. Well, yeah, you're going to get 200 packages in the office. I had 6 things that were due on the same day, and so I wasn't able to get the 7th one done. Totally fair. But how could we do anything to help with that? And so I put together, I'm asking people now, come to the room, and if I say the word emergency, write down everything you can think of that you consider an emergency. And then we start to outline, what could you do to be better prepared for this in the future? If it's a walk-in, what do you do to prepare? If it's 200 packages, what do you do to prepare? If it's an angry resident barging into the office and disrupting everyone's day, what do you do to prepare? Is it just having pen and paper handy? Is it having a quiet space that you know of that has, bottles of water stocked that you can take that angry resident to? Is it whatever it may be? But just by thinking through what you would do if allows you to be prepared for it. And when you're prepared, it doesn't take as long to accomplish.
Right. And it doesn't derail you because you're actually expecting it. You're expecting the emergency.
You're changing your mindset of what your work day looks like. The other piece I've been challenging.
Actually, I have long enjoyed working on Sunday nights.
Yeah.
Sometimes I don't even get on until like 9 o'clock, and then all of a sudden I'm inspired and I knock out like
Right.
2 hours of work. But
Mhm.
it's all my task and to-do list that I know is going to get derailed on Monday morning. It never fails. I could have an open schedule, something will fill it, something will happen.
So this is
It's
a perfect
inevitable.
example.
So I just get myself in front of it so that I can anticipate the Monday morning derailment. And if it doesn't happen, then guess what? I got like 3 work time back in
Time
my
for
day,
you.
and
Get
I'm
that extra
so
coffee. Make that
happy.
Starbucks run, right?
Yes.
But
Take
I
the
think
dog
that's a
for
great
an
example.
extra little WALK. Can't say it out loud because he's right here.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. So I think that's the other piece of this that I get excited about is when I ask people about the items that derail their days, the unexpected things, the things that take their immediate focus and attention. I ask them to start charting when those things happen, and you will almost always find a pattern. The angry resident almost always shows up at 4:30 on Friday. The
Of
walk-in
course.
tour almost always comes in around lunch
5
hour.
minutes before close.
The packages, your UPS, your FedEx, those drivers have routes. They're going to
Yep.
be there at the same time every day. And so kind of part 2 of the scheduling your emergencies beyond writing down what to expect, is it an emergency? How would I prepare? Is then taking it a step further to say, if I know I'm going to get 200 packages at least once a week, and I know it's always going to take place between 2 and 3 p.m., then I can stop scheduling appointments between 2 and 3 p.m.
Right.
because I'm kind of rescheduling and balancing my day based on that expectation. And Janet, to your point, if it doesn't happen, that's a win. You can now
Yes.
do something else. You have time back in your day, so you're not further derailed. Now you're ahead of time.
Right. And can we talk about walk-ins for a minute? Because I think it's important to also acknowledge that a walk-in tour does not have to be delivered exactly as you would a scheduled tour, that you have an hour scheduled. If someone
Hmm?
walks in 10 minutes before you're supposed to have another scheduled appointment, I think it's totally fair to say, oh, I'm so glad you're here. I do have an appointment coming up in 10 minutes, but let's see how much we can get through.
Hmm?
And if we've deemed that this is a great match, let's schedule additional time for you to come back and do the full tour. I think people are very
You and
respectful of
I,
the fact that they crashed your schedule.
most people are. And I think you and I could do 2 more hours just on customer service and
We
creating
could.
a connection. We could. That's a whole other day.
Yes.
But I think that still goes back to the mindset of, if you get someone excited enough to want to live in your community, they may not need an hour to be ready to apply.
Right.
I've toured enough communities. Janet, you've toured virtually, by phone, in person, enough communities to know the biggest hurdle to someone choosing to live in a community or not is how they feel when they were greeted.
Yes.
Did the team
Yes.
want
And
them to be there?
way too often, facial expressions reflect the chaos the employee is feeling. So, what you're just saying in scheduling your emergencies and preparing to not have distractions derail you is really the precipice for delivering the right facial expression and the right greeting, no matter what's happening around you.
That is totally it. If someone walks in the door and I have a blank piece of paper handy, a pen handy, maybe some marketing materials, and I can go over and say, I'm so glad you made it to the community. It's so nice to meet you. I'd love to hear why you walked in my door today and learn more about you. By the way, can I just take some notes? I only have 10 minutes, but let me get 10 minutes worth of notes. And I would love to call you back today, tomorrow, next week, so we can continue this conversation. But branding it as a connection and conversation with a stranger is totally different than what I see at a lot of communities that I travel to.
Right. Right. Oh gosh, this just makes me want to come to your properties and meet all of your people, because I can only imagine how inspired they are by these sessions and by the permission to actually acknowledge those emergencies or distractions or barriers as part of the workday.
Mhm.
They aren't, I
I
mean,
guess
there's derailments every single day in property
that's it.
management. So if we can just acknowledge them as, yes, they happen, it's part of your day. So just figure 50% of your day is going to come at you from out of nowhere. So if you're ready for
And
it,
again,
then it
building
doesn't
your
derail
time
you.
that way. I'm sure you've chatted with folks. I don't know how many sales and leasing professionals I've met who stack their tours back to back, and they go, "Oh, if I have 8 tours in a day, that's a good productive day." I like to push back on that a little bit. Maybe it's true. Maybe they've got a system. But if you worked your 8 hours and you had 8 tours and each tour takes an hour, are you really making positive connections with those individuals? I think you could increase your closing percentage, make better use of your time, and accomplish more if you're having 4 extremely committed, thorough, detailed
Right.
conversations that all want to live at your community.
Right. And I think as new leasing agents, you get in the spirit of like, I'm really good at this when I can talk everybody into a tour. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm really good at this. But it's also really important that you define that matchmaking process of qualifying and making sure that every prospect is qualified for the unit. I can remember when I started out as a leasing agent, giving the most thorough, from my perspective, tour. And I would literally take out the property map and my little colored pen, and I would jot down every 2-bedroom that was available so that they had all the information at their hand. What I learned shortly after that, of course, was you don't want to give them so many options that it's overwhelming. You want to ask the right questions to properly define which 2 apartments are right for them. So they've got
Mhm.
2 options, but they don't
Yeah.
have to be overwhelmed by every single option. So I think constantly refining that skill and understanding where the best time is to spend in your day. I also have, I call it a Janetism. I have a few statements that I hear myself making often, but that leasing agent who schedules back to back 8 tours covering 8 hours in the day, you're then only able to impact, I'll call it that which affects many versus that which affects few. You are now only able to make an impact on 8 people in that day. And if we go by, 50% tour to applied closing rate, 4 of those are going to apply and probably 2 of them are going to qualify. So
Right.
make sure those 8 tours, if that's how you're going to use your day, are already pre-qualified, because you've left yourself no other time in the day to work your pipeline, respond to leads coming in, make callbacks on the people you toured yesterday.
Mhm.
So it really is kind of refining that process of, like you said, make your time count really well.
And again, everything is leasing. This is the same process that
Mhm.
you should use in every single seat and role, is finding out what's going to have the biggest impact to your point, Janet. How many people can you touch? But if it's, trying to get all of your renewals sent out or batched or whatever you may do, thinking about when's the best point in the day to do that. When am I going to get derailed? What other items might pop up on my day? So
Yep.
do you need to block off that extra time in the morning to do it and then have free time in the afternoon? Maybe. But plot that out. The other piece I wanted to bring up, because you mentioned your Sunday nights, I found a lot of help picking a point in the week where I keep an open time block to
Mm-hmm.
plan out the next week. So it's on
So
my calendar, it's noted, and it says, all right, this is the time you look at the future and you make sure that you have everything prepared. So again, you're not surprised by
yep.
something else that pops up.
Yeah. I know sometimes we really, you and I have been around long enough that I think we've gotten over this hurdle. But sometimes I think as humans, we feel like we need to allow someone else to book every single moment in our calendar. We need to be available for others every single moment in our calendar. And
Mhm.
I have to block that time out as well and be able to say, like, I actually need time to focus too. So this particular block on Wednesdays, I don't take meetings. Like, that is my
Right.
time to actually like knock out some lingering stuff that I haven't been able to reply to, or, read, maybe watch back a session that I wanted to be in, but I was booked and it's recorded. So
Sure.
now I can go back and watch it. Like that's not free time. You shouldn't feel guilty about booking it, but it is really important that you also leave some time for your own work and catch up and learning.
The other piece of that in scheduling emergencies and planning ahead is to what you just said, that when you're changing what you're doing, it may not be free time as long as it's impactful long term.
Yeah.
So if I know I've had a particularly challenging morning or a stressful situation came up and I say, I need to take a walk, I probably have a list of things that I can do while I'm walking, whether it's a phone call to someone, whether it's inspecting the grounds of the community, whether it's meeting someone for coffee that I said I was going to and never got around to it. I can schedule my walk to still be productive and still
Yeah.
take something off the list, while also being the escape from the situation that I wanted to escape from.
Right. That's such good advice. Because there are certain people that are on your callback list that you can totally see having a really enjoyable conversation on a walk. There's others that you
Absolutely.
can look at on your callback list and feel like, I kind of need to be in front of my screen for
I
this
kind
one.
of need to be in front of the computer
Yeah. I'm going to need to dip into some files or some records. Yeah. Yeah. I want to ask you 2 questions about the role of trainer and helping others grow within the organization, within the industry. One of them is, what are the biggest challenges you feel like are facing training in the industry right now? And the follow up to that is, what do you see on the horizon for training and growth and development?
I think the biggest challenge, you alluded to it earlier, Janet, is this mindset that we've had forever that you can only grow vertically and that your time is being wasted if you're not going up.
Yeah.
And I think getting people to understand that by broadening your skill set, by broadening your mindset, by broadening what you're exposed to, that can set you up for future growth, but it might take a while. I think patience is something that we're seeing now. A lot of people want a promotion, and maybe it's not the job that's best for them, and then they just end up not liking it. And so being
Right.
really mindful and careful to broaden as you can and always take advantage of every opportunity that you have, even if you don't see it going somewhere tomorrow. It
That
might
is
go somewhere
excellent.
next year.
Before you touch into the second part of that question, I
Mhm.
want to just acknowledge that both you and I are products of growing horizontally, right?
Yeah.
I never moved, well, I'll have to let you share your end of the story, but I never moved from leasing to assistant manager to property manager. I knew pretty early on, and I think my property manager probably did too, in all fairness, I would have sunk a ship if
Mhm.
I had been put in an assistant manager role. Like, I am not like
I don't
the
know about
little
that.
nitty gritty details and keep to a routine, but I am a people person and I'm creative and I spot opportunity to rally others. And I moved from leasing to taking on all of the resident renewals
Mhm.
to training leasing agents across the organization when it was smaller, and then moving into a marketing role when it became time to have a marketing role. So
Mhm.
that whole opportunity happened because I put myself in the right places at the right time. I had the right
And so
conversations. I was pretty
that is the
transparent with
piece.
people. I had visibility to people who could get to know those strengths in me and then thought of me when opportunities came up. So it does not have to happen vertically. And I'm curious
So
your version of the
you
same thing
you
because
just listed
when
about 6 topics that are all individual conversations in your pitch there. One I want to stick to, we talked about it earlier, that professional brand piece, that's what it's all about, right?
Mhm.
You mentioned people were looking out for you, not you seeking the opportunity. And I think that's a big difference right now that I like to share. If your personal brand is one where you show up, you're consistent, people know what to expect of you, they know that you will finish the work, they know you'll be honest and direct and fair with them. You are given opportunities and you don't have to work as hard to find them. But that's that professional brand building. So it's really important for people to mindfully craft their own professional brand.
Yeah.
The second piece, understanding that just because your title or even your pay rate didn't change doesn't mean you're not growing. And that patience factor with being okay, not getting that pay bump, knowing that if I wait, there might be something better. Now, the flip side of that is knowing when to stop waiting.
Yeah.
Now, I am someone who's a fan of loyalty, but I'm more so loyal to individuals than an organization. The individual is going to look out for me. They have my best interests in mind. I've made those connections. And if they offer the opportunity, I know it's a good opportunity. I love being with organizations as long as possible. I have really good history and tenure with a handful of companies. But it's a lot of times because of the people that were in those
Yeah.
companies.
Well, and if you know the direction that you ideally want to grow and the current organization you're in doesn't really offer it, say you want to grow into lease ups, you really want to have that
Mhm,
experience. The company you currently work for doesn't do development.
mhm.
It's kind of on you to um, carve the path for your career. And I think
Yes,
companies that genuinely appreciate the work you do, if given the conversation of, hey, this is something I'm really seeking, I know it doesn't exist here, I just want to have a conversation with you. I can think of 15 companies here locally in this market that would take that employee and say, let me introduce you.
absolutely. And that's the conversation is a big piece, is challenging someone to be bold and tell their supervisor, I don't like what I'm doing. This is what I do want to do. Could I do it with you? Because if you love a lease up, but your company doesn't do lease ups, could you be a problem solver? Can I say, well, it's not a lease up. Well, we've got this one property that's really struggling and they
Yeah.
really need someone to take over it. Maybe that's what you can do. And then you can stay in the organization with the people
Yep.
and still do what you love. But you do have to have that conversation and you have to know what you want to do, but you have to be willing to accept a job that has the pieces you love without the title.
Right. Right. And your path went a bit horizontally as well versus vertically, that you moved from challenging
Similar to
leasing
yours.
position to more challenging leasing position to more challenging leasing position into a training role.
Yes.
Did you have a pit stop as an assistant manager?
No, I did not. No,
Okay.
never an assistant
Okay.
manager. But I did take on, and I think, you would mention it, and it's similar to yours in that even though I didn't have an assistant manager title, did I do renewals?
Yeah.
Did I do invoicing? Did I
Yep.
do, budgeting? Of course, I did all of those pieces without the title, without the
Yeah.
pay. And I was willing to go through those times to learn the skill sets, knowing that I want to teach this one day, so I
Right.
better know how to do it.
Listen, when you're a really good leasing agent and you work on commission, I mean, I'll be honest in saying I took a pay cut when I left leasing to take on a marketing role. I
Certainly.
knew that was going to happen. I didn't have the access to the commission anymore, and the renewals that I was working as well. I mean, that was a intentional move because there was so much more forward growth on the marketing
Right.
side.
So you kind
It's
of
like
get yourself
sometimes you
in,
have to
like
take
you
a
said, you
side
get
step
yourself
to
in the
put
right
yourself
lane.
on the, yeah, you have to take that on ramp onto a 4-lane road instead of a
Mhm.
county highway, right?
Right. Find the lane and,
Yeah.
and then just work at it.
Yeah. Okay, I want to go back to the
Yeah.
last question.
Just say
I
that was a
didn't let
long
you
detour. I
finish, but what do you
apologize.
see on the horizon? What's coming? There's just so much information coming at us all the time. And you mentioned it
hmm
earlier when we first started talking that people have so much access to where they learn and how they learn. What do you see
Right.
coming on the horizon?
What's on the horizon is a lot more opportunity for for people to know a whole lot more stuff. Um, Multifamily is traditionally slow to take up new things, new ideas, new ways of doing business, new terminology, and we're well aware of that. Um, but there's so much more opportunity for people to take more ownership of their own role and their own job than there ever has been before. Your leasing professional can also understand SEO. That's not something they would have done 10 years ago, right? You can actually lean into that skill set. Um, your marketing professional can also be doing business development pitches and getting into those client meetings. Everyone's job is not just, do this one thing and that's all you're doing. The future is the work will look different. It will always look different. And even though the name may stay the same, you have access and opportunity to learn skill sets that didn't exist 3, 5, 10 years ago. And I think that creates an avenue for people who are curious and hungry to find a lot more within the industry that they love, because the job doesn't exist today, but it will exist next year.
I love that. Oh my gosh. If I had had the opportunity to have been able to just click into YouTube and learn about SEO and SEM
Oh
and
my gosh.
what I could do with it. I
How many
mean,
years would that have saved?
right?
I look
Or
back.
just that relationship between leasing and marketer, right? Like you come in and get involved in a lot of conversations within our marketing community, and you bring the best perspective because you are a trainer and you come from the leasing side as well. And if I could just ask one thing of really curious leasing people, it's ask your marketer how you can really lean into the work they're doing to be more successful in the work you're doing.
Yeah.
It's such a collaborative relationship. Jared, you and I could talk for like 3 hours and then
Absolutely.
do it again tomorrow
Anytime.
and the next day and the next day. Yes. But in the spirit of allowing listeners to have, more time in their day and not holding you
Sure.
all day long, I always end these conversations with the same question to my guests. In the spirit of optimization, what is something that you personally do to optimize your own performance professionally or personally to just gain that 1% better in your day?
I would go back to consistent relationship building. Really making sure you schedule out in your day or your week time to connect with other people and time to learn from those people. Like if you can learn a new thing from someone every single week, you start to stack up pretty quickly. And that definitely makes a difference long term. But it's about maintaining and growing a variety of relationships with people. To your point, Janet, meeting your marketing person. Well, maybe you want to meet someone on the development side. Maybe you want to meet an owner. Maybe you want to meet someone, and being really mindful about putting time on your calendar to maintain and grow that relationship.
That's such good advice. And I can't even tell you how grateful I am that you made time today to be here and connect, but not just connect here, but all the listeners that are going to hear this session and take away some of the tips, I think deserve to come and find you as well. So,
Please
Jared,
do.
how
Happy to
can
have a
all of our
conversation.
listeners find you? Where's the best place to find you?
Find me on LinkedIn. I also, we talked about professional brand. I am really big on having a pretty thick line between personal life and professional life. I don't mix those things very often. I do sometimes, but I don't like to. So any professional stuff, find me on LinkedIn. I'd love to have a conversation.
That's fantastic. Listeners, you heard it here. Find Jared Leese. He posts great things, has great conversations, just a curious professional in this industry. And we're lucky to have you here today, Jared. If you enjoyed this session, I hope that you will like, share, comment on it. You can find it on the Multifamily Media Network, along with a variety of other hosts that they're adding monthly. I'm inspired by a lot of the new hosts out there as well, and sponsors. Take a look, take a listen, and check in on the blog articles as well. There's always something to learn. So thanks again for joining us for Optimized, and I hope you go find 1% better in your daily performance. Thanks again for taking time today for this session. I hope you found a bit of inspiration and wisdom to optimize your performance. If you're a marketing influencer, either on the operations or supplier end, be sure to check out Cadence Marketing Solutions and specifically explore our Run Club online community. No actual running is necessary. We've made it our mission to support marketers and lead you to the voices, resources, and tools that impact your success in this fast-paced industry. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. And visit multifamilymedianetwork.com to learn more about our other industry podcasts, thought pieces, and sponsorship opportunities. Until next time, I hope you find that 1% better.
Thank you again to Chadwell Supply for sponsoring this episode. Chadwell Supply delivers unforgettable service with next day delivery, online and in-person maintenance training, procurement platform assistance to make your ordering simple. Visit chadwellsupply.com/difference to learn how Chadwell Supply will make your day better.